Have you ever walked away from a simple conversation feeling completely drained? You sat down for coffee, spent an hour talking, no arguments, no conflict, nothing overtly negative, and yet, as you leave, it feels like someone reached inside you, yanked out your battery, and left you running on empty. A strange hollowness lingers, as if something essential was quietly siphoned away. Now, contrast that with another kind of person, someone who, after hours of deep conversation, leaves you feeling invigorated, almost electrified. Instead of exhaustion, you feel sharper, more inspired, more alive. It's as if they didn't just listen, they plugged you into some unseen energy source, recharging you in ways you didn't even realize you needed. What causes this stark difference? Why do some people drain us like a slow, invisible leak, while others leave us overflowing with energy? This question fascinated one of the greatest minds in psychology, Carl Jung. The Swiss psychiatrist, known as the father of analytical psychology, spent decades unraveling the hidden dynamics of human interactions, exposing the unseen forces that shape how we affect each other's energy. For Jung, this wasn't just about personality types or social skills. He believed something much deeper was at play, something rooted in the unconscious mind, in the invisible psychological currents that flow between us. Today we're diving into Jung's groundbreaking insights to uncover why some people leave you drained while others lift you higher, and more importantly, what you can do to protect your energy. To understand Jung's perspective, we need to explore his concept of psychic energy, what he called libido. When people hear that word, they often think of Freud and sexuality. But Jung saw it differently. For him, libido wasn't just sexual, it was the life force that fuels our entire being. It powers our thoughts, emotions, creativity, and even our relationships. He described this energy as constantly flowing through our psyche, shifting between the conscious and unconscious mind, much like blood circulating through the body. And when this energy becomes blocked, depleted, or misdirected, psychological distress follows. One of Jung's most powerful revelations was that relationships aren't just social interactions, they are energy exchanges. Every conversation, every moment shared, involves a transfer of this psychic energy. Some exchanges are balanced, leaving both people enriched. Others are one-sided. One person leaves revitalized, while the other is left utterly drained. So what makes the difference? And more importantly, how do you protect yourself from energy-draining interactions before they sap the life out of you? Take a moment and think about the people in your life. Who leaves you feeling invigorated, charged with new ideas and fresh energy? And who, no matter how brief the interaction, leaves you feeling like you've run a mental marathon with weights strapped to your ankles? Carl Jung believed this wasn't just a matter of personal preference or fleeting moods. These feelings reveal something deeper, hidden psychological forces at play, beneath the surface of your interactions. But what exactly is happening in these draining encounters? Why do some people seem to siphon the very life force out of you? Jung identified several powerful mechanisms behind this phenomenon, the first of which is projection. We all have parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge, insecurities, fears, desires we find unsettling. Instead of facing these uncomfortable truths, we unconsciously offload them onto others. And energy-draining people? They are masters of projection. They refuse to own their negativity, their self-doubt, their unresolved issues. Instead, they unload them onto you, forcing you to carry the emotional baggage they won't even admit exists. Imagine a colleague who is deeply insecure about their competence but refuses to confront it. Instead of acknowledging their own doubts, they constantly nitpick your work, undermine your confidence, and make you second-guess yourself. What's really happening? They're outsourcing their anxiety, making you feel the insecurity they can't bear to face. And you? You walk away carrying a weight that was never yours to begin with. No wonder you feel exhausted. Then there's emotional contagion, a silent, invisible force more potent than we realize. Emotions don't just stay locked inside an individual, they spread like viruses. When someone is consumed by anxiety, resentment, or fear, that energy radiates outward, contaminating the emotional atmosphere around them. This isn't just metaphorical. Neuroscience has uncovered the role of mirror neurons, specialized brain cells, that cause us to unconsciously mimic and absorb the emotional states of those around us. This means that when you spend time with someone drowning in negativity, your own brain starts mirroring their distress. Their emotional storm seeps into your nervous system, dragging you into their psychological chaos, whether you realize it or not. But perhaps Jung's most profound insight into energy-draining relationships comes from his concept of the shadow, the hidden, repressed aspects of ourselves that we refuse to see. Deep within us lie the parts of ourselves we refuse to see, the aspects of our personality that don't fit the image we carefully construct. If you pride yourself on being kind, your shadow holds your hidden capacity for cruelty. If you see yourself as rational, your shadow harbors your most chaotic, impulsive instincts. The problem arises when someone refuses to acknowledge these buried parts of themselves. Instead of integrating their shadow, they project it onto the world around them, leaking it into every interaction, draining the energy of those closest to them. Take, for example, someone who denies their own anger. They don't lash out openly. Instead, their frustration seeps through passive-aggressive comments, subtle manipulation, an air of constant tension that keeps others on edge. Being around them is exhausting, not because of what they say, but because of the emotional undercurrent you're forced to navigate. You're not just talking to them, you're battling the weight of their unresolved darkness. Jung captured this truth perfectly. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The same applies to relationships. Until people confront their unconscious patterns, those patterns will control their interactions, draining not just their own energy, but the energy of everyone around them. So what do these energy-draining personalities look like in the real world? Jung's insights reveal several archetypal figures, and chances are you've encountered some of them before. First, the victim. This person has surrendered to helplessness, wearing it like a badge of identity. Nothing is ever their fault. Every misfortune is someone else's doing. They constantly unload their problems onto others, but reject every possible solution. What they seek isn't help, it's pity. And they drain you by pulling you into an endless cycle of rescuing and enabling, all while refusing to take control of their own life. Jung would say the victim has disowned their inner strength, their capacity for change, and projected that power onto others. They resent those who possess what they have denied in themselves. Then there's the narcissist, perhaps the most infamous energy vampire of all. At first, they're magnetic, charming, captivating, but soon every interaction begins to orbit around their needs, their desires, their endless hunger for validation. They crave admiration but rarely reciprocate. Conversations become one-sided monologues, and your role in their world is reduced to that of an audience, applauding, affirming, feeding their insatiable ego. What starts as attraction eventually turns into depletion. The more you give, the less you receive, until you're left running on empty, wondering why you ever engaged with them in the first place. The narcissist is trapped in a prison of their own making, disconnected from their inner world, unable to cultivate true self-awareness. Instead, they seek validation through others, using them as mirrors to reflect back an inflated, grandiose image of themselves. They don't connect with people, they consume them. Every interaction is a silent demand. See me, admire me, validate me. And in their relentless hunger for attention, they drain everyone around them, leaving behind nothing but exhaustion. Then there's the martyr. At first glance, they seem selfless, always sacrificing for others. But beneath this surface of endless giving lies an invisible price tag. Every favor, every act of generosity is an unspoken transaction, a debt you'll never fully repay. Their silent refrain echoes in your mind. After everything I've done for you, they don't just give, they weaponize their sacrifices. And the weight of that unspoken obligation becomes a chain around your neck, pulling you into a cycle of guilt and quiet resentment. From Jung's perspective, the martyr is someone who has abandoned their own needs, suppressing their desires until they become unbearable. But instead of acknowledging them, they project those needs onto others, resenting them for the very things they themselves have denied. Then there's the manipulator, a master of hidden agendas. They never ask directly. Instead, they weave a web of guilt, fear, and obligation, subtly pulling the strings of your emotions. They make you feel responsible for their feelings. One conversation with them can leave you questioning yourself, second-guessing your instincts, drained not by what was said, but by the undertow of unspoken expectations. Jung would say the manipulator is someone who has rejected their own vulnerability. Instead of facing their fears, they project them outward, controlling others as a way to manage their own unacknowledged anxiety. And finally, there's the energy vampire. They don't need cunning or manipulation. Just their presence alone is enough to drain the air from the room. They monopolize conversations, turn minor problems into full-blown crises, or simply radiate a nervous, chaotic energy that leaves everyone around them scattered and depleted. You walk away from them feeling like you've been wrung out, as if something essential has been taken from you, without you ever realizing when it happened. What all of these types have in common is a fundamental imbalance in energy exchange. They take far more than they give, often without even realizing it. And unless you recognize these patterns, you'll find yourself caught in their gravitational pull, slowly, quietly, drained. Now here's a question most people avoid. A question Jung himself would insist you ask. Why do these energy-draining people keep showing up in your life? Is it just bad luck? A coincidence? Or is there something deeper at play? Something hidden within you that draws these patterns back, again and again? Jung believed that our relationships are not random. They are reflections of our inner world. The people who enter our lives, especially those who challenge us the most, are often mirrors, revealing what we refuse to see within ourselves. So if you keep encountering the same exhausting, soul-depleting personalities, it's not just happening to you, it's happening because of something within you. The first reason? Unresolved wounds attract people who will reopen them. If you grew up with emotionally distant parents, you may unconsciously seek out partners who are just as unavailable. If you were raised to feel unseen, you may gravitate toward people who make you fight for their attention. The psyche has a strange, almost cruel way of recreating its traumas, not to torture you, but in a desperate attempt to finally heal. Jung captured this truth in a single line. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. The people who drain you the most, they may be activating your deepest unhealed wounds, the ones you've never fully confronted. The second reason? People-pleasing and weak boundaries make you an open target. If you struggle to say no, if you feel guilty for setting limits, if you consistently put others before yourself, then without realizing it, you've sent out an invitation. Drain me. I won't stop you. Energy vampires thrive in environments where boundaries are weak, and until you develop a strong sense of self, what Jung called individuation, you will continue to be easy prey. The third reason, lack of self-awareness keeps you stuck in the cycle. If you don't recognize your own triggers, your own blind spots, your own recurring patterns, then you'll never see the trap before you step into it. You'll keep walking into the same dynamics, wondering why you always feel depleted without realizing that you're replaying the same story over and over again. And finally, perhaps most profoundly, Jung would ask you to look at your own shadow. What if the very thing that drains you in others is actually a reflection of something you've rejected in yourself? Think about it. The qualities that irritate us the most in people are often the ones we refuse to acknowledge within our own personality. If someone's constant neediness exhausts you, ask yourself, have you denied your own vulnerability, suppressing your need for support? If someone's anger drains you, is it because you've buried your own ability to assert yourself, mistaking it for something destructive rather than necessary? Jung put it perfectly. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Draining relationships aren't just an annoyance. They are a mirror, reflecting back the disowned parts of ourselves. And while this realization can be uncomfortable, it's also an opportunity, an invitation to reclaim the parts of you that you've unconsciously cast into the shadows. But now comes the real question. How do you protect yourself from these energy-draining people and relationships? Jung's psychology offers several powerful strategies. First, develop ruthless self-awareness. Pay close attention to your energy after every interaction. Who consistently leaves you feeling depleted? What behaviors trigger this exhaustion? What patterns emerge across different draining relationships? Start journaling. Track your energy levels throughout the day. Identify what Jung called complexes, emotional hotspots buried deep in your psyche that, when triggered, cause a disproportionate drain on your energy. Because once you see the pattern, you can break it. Second, set boundaries, like your life depends on it. Jung believed that psychological health depends on a strong sense of self, an ego with clear, defined boundaries. Without these boundaries, your energy is up for grabs, leaking out to anyone who demands it. Saying no without guilt is not just a skill, it's self-preservation. Recognizing when someone is overstepping your emotional limits is essential. You don't have to justify yourself. Simple phrases like, "I can't take that on right now," "I need time to think about that," "That doesn't work for me." These words are small shields that protect you from being drained by other people's chaos, and the more you use them, the stronger they become. Third, master your energy before others drain it. Jung was deeply fascinated by Eastern traditions, practices designed not just for relaxation, but for mastering the flow of psychic energy. He saw meditation, movement, and creative expression not as luxuries, but as tools for protecting and redirecting one's inner power. You must develop your own rituals for energy restoration. Meditation, to silence the mental noise and reclaim control over your thoughts. Time in nature, to reconnect with the primal forces that restore what the world drains. Creative expression, to give your energy an outlet before it turns into frustration or fatigue. Physical movement, to prevent energy stagnation from weighing you down. Intentional time with uplifting people, because the company you keep either fuels you or bleeds you dry. Fourth, face your shadow. Before it controls you, this is the deepest, most difficult work and the most essential. Jung warned that the parts of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge don't simply vanish. They lurk in the unconscious, shaping our choices, attracting the very dynamics we claim to despise. The energy-draining relationships you struggle with may not be happening to you, but through you, manifestations of the shadow you've neglected for too long. So ask yourself, what traits in others trigger the strongest reactions in me? What parts of myself do I hide, repress, or disown? What emotions do I fear or refuse to express? This is shadow work, the process of reclaiming what you've cast away. Because when you integrate your shadow, something profound happens. You stop reacting blindly. You stop attracting people who drain you. You stop mistaking emotional vampires for friends. You become whole, not perfect, but sovereign, fully in control of the energy you give and receive. The final truth, this isn't just a feeling, it's a psychological reality. What we've explored today isn't just about bad vibes or subjective exhaustion. These are real psychological processes identified by Carl Jung decades ago. When someone leaves you feeling empty, powerful unconscious forces are at work. Projection, where others dump their unresolved issues onto you. Emotional contagion, where their negativity seeps into your own nervous system. Shadow dynamics, where the parts of yourself you reject make you vulnerable to the people who embody them. We've uncovered the archetypes of energy-draining personalities: the victim, the narcissist, the martyr, the manipulator, and the energy vampire. Each one depletes others in different ways, but all create a fundamental imbalance in energy exchange. And finally, we've looked inward, because awareness is the first step toward breaking the cycle. When you understand why these dynamics keep appearing, you gain the power to stop them. And that power? That's the first step toward real freedom. Your wounds, your boundaries, your blind spots, your shadow. These aren't just abstract concepts. They are the invisible forces shaping the relationships you attract and the energy exchanges you endure. Until you confront them, the cycle will continue. The same draining people, the same exhaustion, the same unspoken frustration. But the moment you step into awareness, the moment you take ownership of your energy, you begin to break free. We've uncovered the truth about energy-draining dynamics. We've explored Jung's path to protection, building ruthless self-awareness so you recognize the patterns before they consume you, setting unshakable boundaries so you stop being an open reservoir for other people's chaos, mastering your energy so you replenish instead of being depleted, integrating your shadow so you stop attracting what you unconsciously reject in yourself. Because here's what you must remember: every relationship is an energy exchange, and while no exchange is perfectly balanced at all times, over the long run, it should nourish you, not drain you dry. If you consistently feel depleted after interacting with someone, your body, your mind, your very soul is sending you a message. Listen to it. Jung said it best: who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. The moment you become aware of the unconscious forces shaping your connections, you reclaim the power to change them. You stop tolerating relationships that exhaust you. You recognize projection and manipulation for what they are. You set boundaries that safeguard your most valuable resource, your energy. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you encountered the archetypes we discussed today? Which energy-draining personalities have you faced in your life? What strategies have helped you protect yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because the first step toward awareness is conversation. And remember, your energy is not infinite. It is not free. It is yours to protect, to direct, and to share only with those who honor its value. Or as Jung might say, guarding your energy isn't just a right. It's your responsibility on the path to becoming fully yourself.